everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I've got an exciting new video in my TMNT series in part 1 of my Krang build, so watch along as I paint up my version of his android body. Here we have all of Krang's parts primed and ready to paint. Now I decided to split this build into 2 videos. There's a lot that went into this model, so I thought it would be better suited for 2 videos rather than trying to squeeze everything into a 45-minute one. So enough with the chit chat, let's dive in, paint this fella up. To block in the head, I started with Vallejo Game Air Flesh. For the shading, I used Vallejo's Game Air Beastly Brown and Terracotta Red. Okay, so I've got the skin tones blocked in for these 2 heads and really happy with how it's turning out. I think it looks pretty cool. So now what I want to do is just focus on the details of the face. So I'm going to hop off camera real quick, get my paints mixed up, come back and get the lips, and in this guy's case his teeth and gums painted up, seal it with another coat of clear, and then we can focus on the visor and the neck. So I'll be right back. I painted the gums with a mixture of flesh and terracotta red, and for the teeth I used model color off-white. So I finished up with the teeth and gums and sealed everything with a satin varnish. Now what I need to do is focus on the visor, but first I need to hop off camera, get everything masked off, then I can come back and we can paint it up. So I'll do that real quick and then I'll be right back. I started the visor by painting the lens Mecha Airs red, then masked it off and painted the visor metal colors dull aluminum, and then glossed the lens with clear UV resin. I want to chrome the hydraulics and the neck. So to start, I paint them with All-Clad 2's Gloss Black, then apply thin layers of their chrome and seal it all with their Aqua Gloss. To finish off the details of the neck, I started by painting the tops of the hydraulics Mecha Air yellow, then painted the neck dull aluminum, and then capped it off with a black wash. So the heads are finally done, and I'm pretty happy with how they turned out. I think they look cool, and I'm glad I went ahead and put the extra love into the neck. I was originally just going to paint it a solid metal color and move on, since you don't really see it once he's fully assembled, but I decided, you know what, the details there, let's go ahead and give it a little extra attention and stuff. So I'm happy that I went with the chrome and the yellow for the hydraulics, and the wash just really helps kind of make some of that detail pop and stuff. So again, really happy I put that little bit of extra love into the neck, and I think it really pays off. So now that the heads are done, we can put these guys off to the side and finally start on the rest of the body. Okay, so now that we have the skin tones blocked in and sealed with a matte clear coat, it's time to move on to this upper body here. Now, one of the first things I need to do is, of course, mask off what I've already painted so I don't ruin my hard work. And then after that, I think what I want to do is come in and actually chrome the interior of his stomach. I like the idea of it being kind of a clean and sterile environment. So that's why I'm going with the chrome. Now, I need to hop off camera real quick, get everything masked off, set up my chrome paints, then I'll come back and we'll paint the interior. For the chrome to work properly, I first need to lay down a base coat of All-Clad 2's Gloss Black. Now it's best to lay down a dust coat first, then follow that up with a heavier wet coat to avoid runs. Next up is the chrome paint itself, which I lay down in thin coats until I get the desired effect. To finish it off, I seal the paint with All-Clad 2's Aqua Gloss. For the neck and shoulder cavities, I painted them with Metal Colors Burnt Iron. Then I applied a judicious layer of Vallejo's Black Wash. Lastly, I painted the straps with Metal Colors Dull Aluminum. Then I went over certain areas with a bit of the same black wash. Okay, so I've got everything masked off and we're ready to paint the yellow, but first I'm going to need to reprime his waist. Unfortunately, yellow just doesn't cover very well, so the areas where there's red and this black overspray are going to show through the yellow. So I'm going to hop off camera real quick, reprime the waist, then I'll come back and we'll start painting in the yellow. For the waist itself, I used Mecha Air's yellow. Alright, so now that we have the upper body blocked in and sealed, it's time to start working on some of the details. Now for this next step, I want to focus on the paint chipping. Now in the past with my mousers, you've seen me use something called heavy chipping fluid, which is a really great way to create quick, convincing paint chips. However, I've been trying to get better at painting in my hand, so that's what I want to do here. Now, I did this process on a previous project, which was the 36-inch Voltron. If you haven't seen that, go check it out on my Instagram, and you'll get kind of an idea of where I'm taking this and stuff. So what I want to do is mix up a lighter version of the base color, in this case yellow, and just go in and paint the areas that I feel would be affected by either natural wear and tear or contact with other objects and stuff. Then what I'll do is come back in with the metal afterwards and paint in the middle of those chips, and it creates a really cool effect. You get the top coat, the paint underneath, and the metal. So I've already got my paint mixed up here to the side. So what I want to do is just come in and start painting in the areas I feel would be affected. So in this case, this hinge here, let's rotate this a little bit, like so. And it would probably be, the top of this hinge here would probably be affected. Corner here, so maybe down this edge here, these corners. So just like that. So now what I want to do is go around the entire waist, paint in my chips, and then we'll come back and paint in the middle. After painting the yellow chips, I come back in with Metal Colors exhaust manifold and paint the exposed metal. For the chest plate, I use the same process. I start by painting the paint chips with Mecha Air's Light Flesh, then I came back with the same exhaust manifold to paint the exposed metal. Alright, so the paint chips are done, and yeah, you know, I'm pretty happy with how they turned out. I don't think they look too shabby. You know, it's definitely a practice makes perfect kind of exercise, and I am far from perfect, but I'm just going to keep moving forward until I get the ultimate paint chip effect. But for now, at least, I think these look good. I think they definitely convey the look I was going for and stuff, so it's time to finish up the smaller details on this, and then we can move on. Okay, so now that his upper body is done, it's time to, of course, paint his lower body. And I think what I'm going to do is start with his underwear or diaper or whatever we're calling this, and then, of course, paint his legs, seal everything in a clear coat, and then we can move on. So I'm going to get everything set up, come back, and we'll get started. For the trunks, I first painted the octagon pattern with Mecha Air's dark red, then mixed in a bit of pure black and did some shading. For the quilted area, I used Mecha Air's red and then shaded it with a little bit of Mecha Air's dark red. Moving on to the legs, I start with Metal Colors Dull Aluminum for the centers of the joints. After masking them off, I paint the legs themselves with Metal Colors Burnt Iron. For the details of the legs, I came back with the same Metal Colors Burnt Iron, then painted the back of the knees Mecha Air's Medium Gray. Afterwards, I finish off the legs with Vallejo's Black Wash. So one of the last things we need to do for this robot body is actually paint the hands and feet. So first I'm going to need to do some masking. So I'm going to hop off camera real quick, get that sorted out, come back, and we'll get started. Now to make things easier to mask, I paint the trim and joints with Metal Colors Burnt Iron. Then I block in the hands and boots with Mecha Air's red. Then I paint the fins with Mecha Air's dark red. Last thing I do before moving on to the chipping is to paint the soles dull aluminum, apply the same black wash, and finish them off with some dry brushing with Tamiya's Chrome. The chipping process is the same as before. This time I start with some red mixed with a little bit of off-white. Then I paint the exposed metal with Metal Colors Exhaust Manifold. Okay, so now that the body's finally painted up, the last thing I want to do is just to do a little bit of a dirt pass or a weathering pass on these particular pieces here. So the idea is that I want to go around and just add a little bit of dirt and grime to the folds and recessed areas of the model. So for instance, these little creases between the padding, And then on the boots here, I want to just go along the bottom of the foot where it meets the sole, add a little bit of dirt and grime there. And then for the waist, just kind of come in into the nooks and crannies and just add a little bit of grime and stuff, just to add a little bit of a lived-in feel to these particular pieces. And then once we're done with that, you can finally move on to Krang himself. For the weathering pass, I'm using Model Colors Leather Brown and Black. Now, I don't want to use them straight out of the bottle, nor do I want to make a wash from them. I kind of want something in between, but closer to a wash than, say, maybe thinning it for an airbrush. Now, I don't have an exact mixing ratio. I just try to kind of eyeball it until I get the mixture I think will work best. Then I simply brush it into the areas I want and wipe as much away as possible with a soft sponge. That's pretty much it. So what I want to do now is just work my way around the model. Then once I'm done, we can finally call the android body finished. Alright, so I've finished painting all the parts that go into the android body. So now all I need to do is just glue him up, insert some magnets into the neck and arms, then I'll come back for not one last look, nor my final thoughts. There you go, the android body is done, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm really happy with how he turned out. I think he looks pretty dang cool. But more importantly, I had an absolute blast painting him up. I think this is probably the most enjoyable build that I've done so far. Not that my previous ones haven't been enjoyable, but just something about the painting process, or sorry, the process of painting this guy up was just, it went so smoothly. And I think part of that might be is I didn't overthink stuff like I normally do. I trusted my gut and I trusted my instincts, and I think it paid off. And now I can finally move on to Krang, and I'm really, really stoked about that. Now I've gone ahead and posted the model online, and it does include Krang. It's not just the android body. So if you'd like to print and paint your own, please head over to the link in the description below. And I think that pretty much wraps up this first part of my Krang build, and I'll try and have the second part out in about a week. So if you enjoyed the video, of course, please hit like and subscribe. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, and I'll see you guys in about a week. So take care, everyone.